from Channel 46 in Atlanta. This is Georgia's News at 10.
Japan's Prime Minister uses his visit to Atlanta tonight to visit and set forth new policies regarding economic relations between his country and ours. Good evening. I'm Kevin Coakley.
And I'm KARYN GREER. The Prime Minister made Atlanta his first stop after the wrap-up of the Economic Summit in Houston.
The Prime Minister, TOSHIKI KAIFU, spent the day as many tourists would here in Atlanta, but tonight he drew national attention to the city with his speech. News at 10's Lee Green joins us now live from Buckhead, where the Prime Minister is staying tonight. Lee?
Kevin and KARYN, they're just wrapping up the gala dinner party here at the Ritz-Carlton in Buckhead, an intimate little affair for several hundred movers and shakers, both from here in Georgia and from Japan. The Prime Minister has delivered his speech. In the event, it was not quite the policy blockbuster that some had predicted it would be. The Prime Minister did call for closer economic and cultural ties between the United States and Japan. He also called for improved communications between the nations. He praised the better understanding on trade impediments between the United States and Japan, which have soured relations between the two countries in the past. The Prime Minister predicted the total demise of communism in the Soviet Union and China in the not-too-distant future, and he called on his own people to be somewhat less isolationist. This first-ever visit by a Japanese Prime Minister to Atlanta and to the Southeast has been a busy one. The Prime Minister's Day began with a visit with Coretta Scott King and a little fence mending. Previous members of Japanese administrations have been unkind in their assessment of Afro-American intellectual prowess, and there are lingering suspicions in the Afro-American community here that the Japanese may have something to learn about race tolerance. Prime Minister KAIFU, by laying a wreath at Dr. King's tomb, went a long way to addressing that issue. The rest of the Prime Minister's morning schedule was pure tourist, as aides frantically searched for a quarter so the Prime Minister could look through the telescope at Stone Mountain. Prime Minister KAIFU even did a little mugging for the cameras. Security for this first ever visit by a Japanese Prime Minister was tight, a combination of U.S. and Japanese security personnel anxiously looking out for the Asian leader's safety. The Prime Minister's last pleasure outing was to an antebellum plantation house at Stone Mountain. The afternoon was all business. Prime Minister KAIFU met with prominent Japanese businessmen representing some of the $1.7 billion the Japanese have invested here. Then the Prime Minister met with Southern governors, Governor Harris of Georgia, Governor Clinton of Arkansas, and Governor Martin of North Carolina. One man running for governor here credits past administrations with creating our substantial business ties with Japan.
And I think you have to give credit to previous Georgia governors, particularly the Southern Governors Conference, who some 10, 15 years ago began a relationship. Back Governor Busby, Governor Carter, all the way back there. Governor Sanders, I think, was one of the first to begin to go to Japan in search of business.
The main event tonight, a gala dinner with prominent Georgians and leading Japanese figures joining to listen to the Prime Minister's speech.
It is not enough, he said, for Japanese to view our bilateral relations solely in terms of Washington, D.C. We must also keep in perspective such important and diverse regions as the Southeast.
Kevin and KARYN, tomorrow the Prime Minister goes on to Colorado Springs for some badly needed R&R. He's been on a pretty hectic schedule before going home to Tokyo. Things have been looking up in Tokyo for the Prime Minister. He was thought of as an interim leader when he was appointed last year, but Prime Minister KAIFU led his party to victory in the February elections in Japan. This trip, featuring meetings with the Big Seven in Houston at the Economic Summit there, and this very successful visit to Atlanta, will likely serve to bolster Prime Minister KAIFU's already improving standing with his people in Japan. Kevin and KARYN?
All right, thank you, Lee. Lee Green from Buckhead.
Walter Leroy Moody and his wife Susan were in a federal court.